Hey man, what's good with y'all boys, man? I wanted to make a quick, well, I guess it'll be kind of quick, but we'll see. But I wanted to, something came up uh, in my head and I wanted to just kind of talk about it real quick. And as y'all can see from the title, it's about ego. And I'm gonna get straight into kind of what I was thinking about. And I'm gonna be talking more about ego in terms of our like day-to-day lives, not necessarily that spiritual voodoo ego that you hear about, I guess, or what you're probably thinking about. More so how it evolves or shows up more so in our everyday life. Um, and I want to preface this first by saying that like I am by no means perfect. I still do a lot of the things that I'll probably be talking about in this video. And you know, I want to lead more so with kindness and love and understanding of the fact that everybody has these same kind of characteristics in their own ways. Um, but the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about it is because I was thinking about how in worlds like education, for instance, where we where our priority is to educate, for individuals who are in the education world, your job is to educate the next generation so they're prepared to deal with the things that they will be presented in life. Um, Whether it's, career wise, life wise, mentorship wise, financial wise, all these different things that you just learn when you're growing up. Kids learn them at different rate, at different periods and at different times. And at least in America, the education system itself is very, how I say, it's just bureaucratic. It's not necessarily everything is bureaucratic. Everything is a business in this world, and I personally don't even have like a fix or like a situation or like a way to fix it. But um, I think it's worth having the conversation, and I want to be able to bring up that conversation. Um, But at least in America, the education isn't really geared towards making sure that students and children are prepared. And instead, you end up getting all of these kind of egotistic battles, in a sense. I've been hearing a lot, at least in the field that I'm in, of students being told that they won't make it, or they can't do certain things because they are who they are from teachers, from the grown adults. Um, and you know, whether or not that comes up in every day all the time is neither here nor there. The fact that it comes up at all is insane to me because you are a teacher. But I understand why this kind of happens because maybe that teacher had somebody say that to them, or maybe it's just the fact that being a teacher in today's day is such a grueling task because students and kids aren't really not always the best students probably, and they probably feel some type of way, so they get emotional and they react, and now that like little moment that they might not even remember anymore, it sticks with that child forever, or at least sticks with this people that the student ends up telling, um, and things like that, and then just the work. The job itself, being a teacher, being an administrator or staff in a school, either higher education or secondary school, high school or K through 12, whatever the case. Any types of those jobs, you're tasked with the responsibility of making sure that these students are their well-being is protected, and your job is to protect that at all times. Um, and even in these worlds, like ego just gets in the way all the time, and the only thing that ends up mattering in certain circumstances is my, you know, or the thing that I'm doing, instead of focusing on what each individual student needs and their own, things. And this doesn't just show up in school, it's everywhere. It's ego is in every single form of bureaucratic entity, every single individual that operates within these sectors as an employee or as a manager, or as a customer has some sort of ego that kind of affects it in a way. And I just want to bring that on the forefront. And I want us to realize that We, especially in education, need to put ego aside when it comes to taking care of these students, especially when it's our responsibility, and it's our job. It's not acceptable to be treating students with, you know, malpractice. Even if the student isn't the best student in the world, or even if they're not the nicest student in the world, like every single student has substance. Every single person has substance, and everybody has certain things that are affecting them in everyday life, and I understand that. But we can't let that get in the way of the job. We can't let that get in the way of what we're supposed to do, what our responsibility is, especially when it's something so serious as taking care of children and making sure that they are, or children and teenagers, and making sure that they are, one, prepared for life, and two, prepared or protected in their everyday life, regardless, just because they are children, they are young. So it's it's one of those things that kind of comes up, and um, I think one thing that I'm trying to learn is how to put my pride aside, and even my challenges and the things that I struggle with, and putting them to the side, so I can focus 100% on helping students and what they gotta do for as long as I'm in this career path, because I don't know if I'm gonna be in this career path forever. Um, but I don't I don't think it's worth even considering doing it at all if you're not gonna try, you know. And for me personally, like, ego and pride do get in the way, because like my past and the things that I've dealt with and the way that I operate on a day-to-day basis does sometimes, hinder my ability and what I'm actually doing on my day to day. And this is why I don't personally want to be a teacher. But for the individuals who are teaching, whether or not you want to teach or you don't want to teach, the fact that you have that job means that you need to put your ego aside and focus on what it is these students actually need. And each student's needs are different in different ways. And it takes relationship building to really figure that out, and true empathy to really figure that out. Um, but the reason why I'm titled this, just point blank period ego, is because we have to put a name on it. We have to call it out, and we have to actively work towards not allowing it to dictate who we are every single day. These things that we have, these characteristics, these um, things, these labels that we put on ourselves, we can't let that get in the way of making sure that the next generation is prepared to handle the troubles of life. Because it's not sweet out here, though. It's not sweet out here, and we can't afford as a society to continue to fall down this rabbit hole of giving in to our desires and the things that we feel like are just true to us, because it's not true. We are multidimensional beings that have so much more substance than what it is on the surface, what you portray on your day to day. And there's so much more meaning behind every little thing that happens. And you don't have to go about your life stressing about all the different meanings and all the different things that could be existing in each circumstance, but just acknowledging it, and integrating it into your day-to-day life, and trying to at least understand where most students come from, where most people come from, with any type of career, any type of job that you're doing. Um, and if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then there needs to be a pivot. There needs to be a strategic pivot. And if you can't come up with a strategic pivot, if you can't come up, or if you can't just say fuck it and do something else, then, accept the things you can't change, or change the things you can't accept. Um, but I know everybody's lives are different, and everybody is in different circumstances. So, I say just live your life, think about these things, and don't let ego control um, everything. Uh, and definitely don't let it control your career and how you treat people, especially for those who are in highly social careers, the ones that, um, require you to build relationships and connect with people, and build community. Those types of jobs really suffer from ego because education in America is being attacked on a holistic scale everywhere. From individual places to state to bureaucratic, just like government policy, everything is changing. And there's people in the world who want to make a better life for their next generation. So they're actively trying to get into positions where they can succeed and make these changes in leadership because you can't do everything from the ground. You need to have people who are committed at the top who are going to make those changes. And you also need to have people who are committed at the, I don't want to say bottom because it makes it seem as a negative connotation, but people who are on the ground doing the hands-on work. You need to have those people also committed and doing good work. And when you have students coming to people and saying, this teacher said this, they're like, I'm not going to be able to make it. And that student is only 15, 16. Fuck are you talking about? How do you know that this student's not going to make it? What is your thought process on it? So that's neither here nor there. But don't let ego control anything. And this is something that I gotta remind myself as well. But we're gonna keep it pushing, all glory to God.